Alrighty, and we are live here on the pre-show to Radicalized. I am your host, Mr. Radical, and we're just going to get through a little bit of our necessary work here before the show. If you're just joining in, welcome in. Cal 2325, welcome to the show. We are just on the pre-show here to Radicalized. Victus, welcome aboard. Sue Thomas, welcome aboard. We are just on the pre-show here to Radicalized at 6 o'clock. If you are new to the Beaver Politics Network, we are all about knowledge through discourse. The only way that discourse happens is if everybody gets a chance to be heard. And what I'm hoping tonight is if we have somebody that isn't living currently in North America, what I'm hoping is that you will ask to come up in the box. And we'd love to get an international perspective to the show. I think we're going to be talking about what's happening in America, just like last week. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of other things to talk about. That seems to be the deal right now, unfortunately. So we're just going to go over here. We'll set up our boxes. So we are, if you're just joining in, welcome to the show. This is Radicalized on the Beaver Politics Network. We are all about knowledge through discourse. The only way that discourse happens is if everybody gets a chance to speak. And what I'm hoping tonight is that somebody from that isn't from North America could possibly invite themselves into the box here. We'd love to get an international perspective on the show tonight. Ratch, welcome aboard here. We're just on the pre-show here to Radicalized. Sassy, welcome to the show. If you're just joining in, this is the pre-show to Radicalized, starting at 6 o'clock here. If I'm hoping that somebody from our international audience, somebody that isn't from North America, will ask and invite themselves into the box here. We'd love to get an international perspective on the show and what's happening in North America here. I think what we're going to be talking about is the only thing that we can talk about the failing government in America. Um, Boy, oh boy, I mean, where do we start on that whole fiasco? The tariffs, the threats, the decomposing mental state of its leader, the disastrous trip to Greenland by J.D. Vance, the continued talk of annexation. I mean, there's a myriad of things to cover, I think, in the box tonight, and I think we can have a great discussion on it. So, like I said, I'm hoping that somebody that isn't from North America who's watching tonight will ask to join into the box and hopefully get an international perspective on some of what we're talking about tonight. So if you're just coming in, hello, MS Strong. Good to hear from you tonight. God, well, my goodness, has my time come? Beautiful Cole, welcome to the show. We are just on the pre-show here to Radicalized. I hope everyone can hear me well. MS Strong, if you could just let me know if my voice is coming through well enough. Forking Spooner, welcome to the show. We are just on the pre-show here to Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. I think we're going to get a full box in tonight, and what I'm hoping is that somebody from our international audience will come in tonight and hopefully invite themselves into the box so we can get. Thank you, Colleen. Um, CSP Drums, welcome to the show here. We are just on the pre-show to Radicalize, starting at 6 o'clock. Welcome to the show here. So, if you're just joining us, what I'm hoping tonight is that we get somebody that isn't from North America that hopefully will come into the box here, invite themselves in, so we can get an international perspective. Uh, there's so much to talk about. Oh goodness, yeah. I mean, where do we start here? But I want to introduce a topic tonight about what I really think, particularly the threats toward Greenland, because there he seems to be really bent out of shape about Greenland for some reason, and I think I have the reason why. I'll throw it out there at 6 o'clock, and we'll throw it out there to the panel and see what everybody thinks. Maybe I'm way off board on this, and maybe there's a smidgen of truth to what I have to say. About Welcome, Mr. Flintlock. Welcome to the show. If you're just joining in, I am your host, Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. We are just on the pre-show warm-up at 6 o'clock. What I'm hoping is somebody from our international audience that's joining in here tonight. Hopefully, you'll invite yourself into the box. We'd love to get an international perspective on the discussion tonight. We've had some luck with that the last couple of weeks. We had one fellow from the UK, lovely gal from Australia that came in 2 weeks ago. She was an absolute delight. So that's what I'm hoping is that if you're just joining in, if you're from our international audience and not from North America, that you'll invite yourself into the box here. We'd love to have you and get your perspective on what's happening here in North America, and particularly with you know who. So let me just take care of a little bit of business here while everybody's tuning in. Alrighty. So if you'd like to come into the box here tonight, invite yourself up here. I'd love to have you. Canadians as well. If you're from America or Mexico, absolutely. Please come in, invite yourself into the box. I'd love to have you and open up the discussion here tonight. Just before we get started, maybe you introduce the topics. From Australia, yes, she was an absolute delight. Absolute delight. I think she made quite an impression with the audience, and I would bet that she had a few new followers after that discussion. She was just an absolute delight. She spoke eloquently. She was on the ball about what was happening here as well as over there. So that's what I'm hoping for tonight. If you're just joining in, welcome to the show. If you're not familiar with the Beaver Politics Network, we operate shows 7 days a week now. If you miss a show, you can catch us on YouTube. And considering all of the things that have been happening with this particular app, we kind of wonder how much longer we can hold on here. We've seen a whole lot of very large creators are getting banned. It's a wonder to me that I haven't been banned up to this point, although Mrs. Radical has lost several accounts. And weirdly enough, she just got one back that had been blitzed 7, 8 months ago, I think, that particular account, and she just ended up getting it back. So, how TT makes sense of this stuff, I couldn't really tell you, but that's just the way it is. So if you have missed anything here on TT, you can catch a rerun right there on YouTube. You can also catch us on our Discord server. You can look us up there. And so if you're just joining in here, love to have somebody invite themselves up to the box here. Like to join in on the show. And as I mentioned earlier, I'd love it if part of our international audience is just coming in here. I'd love to have you invite yourself in. I'd love to get an international perspective on what's happening in the world right now, and particularly with Trump and Greenland. I think the Greenland thing is not something that we can ignore. Not that he isn't threatening other places, but absolutely. Hang on, we'll just invite a couple of people into the box here. Mr. Flintlock, welcome to the show. If I could get your age and a rough location for you.
Oh, I'm 40 years old and I live in Kentucky, so.
In Kentucky, so our American friends down there.
Oh, definitely.
MS,
I mean, if obviously you said that you want to talk to other people, so you can always kick me whenever you need.
no, absolutely. I want to hear mostly from the North American perspective, but I'd also like to hear from somebody that isn't from North America, Canada, America, or Mexico. I'd love to have them invite themselves up here. But absolutely, we'll be coming to you real quick here, Mr. Flintlock.
Oh, good.
And Emma Strong, welcome to the show. I don't need to ask you your age. You're good. We've had you here before.
Hello.
And last I heard, it's impolite to ask a lady her age, but sometimes we have to.
Old as dirt.
So I'm gonna introduce the topic tonight. I think there's far more going on with the Greenland thing. Mr. Flintlock, what political affiliation are you, if you don't mind me asking?
And that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a centrist, but also I voted Republican. So
You did vote Republican. Okay. Well, it will be great to hear your perspective on what's going on here. Did you vote for Trump in the last election?
yes, I did.
And are you happy at this point with that choice?
I think it's kind of breaking the mold. You know what I mean? It's like looking at it and you're seeing everything go into chaos, but there's organization before that. I mean, everything that's coming is working out. The problem is it's going to take time. The first term of Trump, it took 2 years, but you saw results. And obviously, we're not seeing results until 2 more years. The issues are, like I would sit there and say, excuse me, one of my biggest qualms is just attacking him on a personal level. That's all we see is personal level attacks. We're not seeing them attack anything that he's doing in the federal government, and we're not seeing any attacks on anything like, you know what I mean? It's just personal nowadays.
What I gotta ask you because I don't often get to talk to a full-blown Trump supporter, but I gotta ask you, what do you see in him as an individual that impresses you that says this is my guy, especially with the rhetoric that has come out ever since he has come back into office? I mean, right now we've got a guy that's talking about annexing Canada, sending troops into Mexico, annexing Panama. He started a trade war, and he's threatening Greenland now and sending JD Vance over there as an envoy. Does none of this concern you?
I don't think that's actually the way it is. You're, I don't know what media you're actually looking at. There's nothing that's going to do that. It's just big talk. I mean, Harry S. Truman was the person that said, carry a big stick, but talk softly. He's just all talk.
Uh, all his talk has now started a full-blown trade war with Canada.
Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't believe it's a trade war. It's about balancing out. You got to
What he's
Okay.
understand that the
balancing.
United States actually does pay more for imports from Canada, and
Uh,
there's nothing that comes back to our coffers.
okay, you are now. I want to throw this out there. You are aware that the last trade agreement that Canada signed with the States was signed by Trump, and that he came out and hailed it as the greatest trade agreement ever. And now he's saying, "What kind of a moron signed this thing?"
What do you mean?
When he signed the 2018 agreement that we are
Yeah,
currently under.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so the current agreement that we are under is a trade agreement that Trump signed with us. And at the time, he said that it was the greatest trade agreement ever. So I have to ask you, how is the greatest trade agreement ever in 6 years managed to become the worst thing that America has ever signed?
No, I'm not saying that. It's basically the same thing. You're seeing it. It works well if we're all a part of each other. I mean, we can work together and
Uh, I'm sorry, I
Well,
have to interrupt. I have to say
yep.
that you talk about the working together. Now, let's just understand that when we hear that from you guys, that's one thing. But when you take a bully tactic by attacking people or saying that you're going, and I mean, it is a massive insult to say to us that we will be the 51st state. Canada will never be the 51st state. We we don't want to be Canadian. We will always be identified as Canadian. People say, well, you're in North America. Well, that might be one thing. But you ask a Canadian will tell you where, what are you? I'm a Canadian. And then we'll break down our province, and then we'll break down our major city. So that's how it works. But we will never identify ourselves as North American. So this whole thing about that we're going to take you over, and the insult of calling like our prime minister could be, oh, the governor. No, that's not how it works. Canada is a sovereign nation. Um, we are not going to become part of that. So when we sit here and we're hearing all of this about, oh, we attack you, well, we don't attack you. We don't. But we are able to stand up and defend ourselves from being attacked because of these ridiculous things that are being told in the news. So I just ask that please you really look at some legitimate sources
I
of
understand.
news
I mean, yeah, I
for.
mean, nobody wants hurt feelings over certain words. I get that.
No, I'm not
But
talking about certain words. I'm talking about you're trying to. You're unfortunately your leader is trying to cripple us so that we would bend.
he doesn't
Do
have
you
full
understand
power.
what a tariff is, sir? I'm not trying to be rude. I'm asking you legitimately. Do you understand that when this tariff is put on us, you guys actually pay for that? You're paying more for that.
I get that. That's what everybody says. But
But
yeah,
that is how it works, sir. And
it
unfortunately, you
actually
have to
doesn't work
understand
that
us.
way. It
You've already
actually
made the comment.
puts
We know you
costs
want our
back onto you
resources.
guys
Like you guys have already
because you
talked about a
can't
tap that
pass
doesn't
it through
exist.
without paying the tariff.
But you understand then that like when these products then come into your
Yeah,
country,
it raises the
whoever is
prices.
buying them, that they will then charge. They're going to charge you more to recover what Trump has installed. Like this is how this works. So ultimately, the tariff actually comes out of your pocket because you have to pay the higher tax and the price. That is how a tariff works. Now, yes, we will pay more because, we have put stuff on, we were importing from you, but we have really decided we aren't really doing a lot of that importing anymore. So we're sticking to a lot of other countries. We are looking at because why would we go in? And then to be told if we're going to be helping somebody else out or going somewhere else, they're going to be taxed too. Like you see what we're doing here? Like that's a bully tactic. That's not how a leader acts.
All right.
I never,
Beautiful. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to interrupt here. Can I get everybody to shut their mics off? It's 6 o'clock. I just got to do the housekeeping here for the show, and I think obviously we have kind of our subject. I think for the start of the conversation here, so I think we'll just continue on with that. But if you're just joining in, welcome to the show. I am your host, Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. Remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. The Beaver Politics Network has shows 7 days a week, multiple times a day. And if you miss a show that you really regret, you can still catch us on YouTube and on Discord as well. So we have tonight, we have Mr. Flintlock here, who's an American. And the subject, obviously, coming up now quickly is tariffs. So I think we'll go on and continue with that. Just in time, I think can you introduce yourself, give us your age and a rough location for you, please?
Sure, yeah, 55, west coast of Canada.
West Coast? Okay. Welcome to the
Yeah.
show. Justin, what do you have to add here on the tariff situation?
Well, it's nice to get somebody from the United States who has a propensity to want to support Mr. Trump, so that you can perhaps provide some. I can provide some insight into this trade imbalance you talked about and the tariff issue. So the trade imbalance, Mr. Flint, 85 billion of that is the oil that we sell the United States for the national security purposes of your 85 billion a year, which means if we didn't sell you that oil, then the trade imbalance would be the other way around. And the only reason we sell you that oil is because you asked for it at a very discounted price from us. So there is no trade imbalance other than the one that you've asked for, the America has asked for. In fact, Mr. Trump asked for it, as did Mr. Biden. And it's $85 billion a year. And that, if you deduct that from our $425
I
billion,
agree
um,
100%.
right,
But can
then
you
there is no
refine?
more trade imbalance.
Are you capable of
Number one.
refining that oil?
We have refineries. Yes, we have refineries here, but we have integrated the North American oil business. You
Yeah,
listen to
we
Mr.
buy it
Green.
at a low cost. It doesn't mean that it's purified. So we're taking crude oil,
Well, but you retooled.
right? But it has to be refined.
Uh,
And yeah,
of
we're
course it does.
buying it
But
at cost if you look at it.
yes, but before that, you had to buy from Saudi Arabia, and there was a national security interest, and that's why the oil industry became North
But we still
American. So
buy
you
from
get four.
Saudi Arabia, by the way.
No, you don't. You buy 4 million barrels a day from Canada and 1.5 million from Mexico, and that makes your quota of 21 million a year. A day that you need. You don't just need. Actually, you don't need all that. But what you do is you refine it and resell some of it and make profit from it. So that's the trade imbalance issue. The tariff issue. I want to just cover that off real briefly here.
So we're
When
done
a
with oil. Okay, good.
Well,
But
there's not much else to say about oil.
it's all part and parcel of the same conversation.
We refine a bunch of your oil in New Brunswick and send it down into Maine and Vermont too. So it just goes back and forth. That's how it works. That's how the industry was built here in North America. And that creates a trade imbalance. On the tariff side of things, Mr. Trump has put a 25% tariff on our aluminum and steel product. 85% of the cost of the steel that goes into, is the cost of the steel that goes into a car. So there's no there's no discussion around it's going to be a minimum of $5,000 on average increase in price of a car in America now that the auto tariff and the steel tariff has been put on Canadian products. So Ford pays us an additional 25% for the raw material. They have to pass that along to the consumer, and that's in America.
That is not from
And
us.
so
Yard at your mom's waiting on you.
Yeah,
that's
thank you, Florida.
the situation there. Um, and so any product that we sell into America that has a tariff on it, whoever imports it, whether it's Ford or General Motors or whether it's, some California company buying widgets from us, or potash for that matter, which we supply 70% of America's fertilizer potash. You're going to pay a tariff on that. That gets passed along to the American consumer who then buys that product. We don't pay the tariff. Thank you.
Uh, I just want to have everybody pause for just 1 second here. I want to go over some ground rules here for Beaver Politics. Beaver Politics is all about knowledge through discourse. The only way that discourse happens is if everybody gets an opportunity to speak. So if you are not speaking, please have your mic off until I call on you to speak. So, Florida, you're just joining the show here. Can I have I'm guessing from Florida, but can I get your age, please, for legalities for the show?
46.
46. Excellent. Thank you. All right, Mr. Flintlock, do you want to respond to that last comment there? And then Mr. Florida will get to you.
I don't really have any comment. I mean, really, it's just the same thing. You're just saying tariffs are going to hurt. Now, is it going to hurt us more than it's going to hurt you? That's the question.
Okay, so what is the end result of all the hurting, though, Mr. Flintlock?
But I mean, it doesn't really matter. The idea is, a balance, and yet I'm not hearing any balance. Like I sat there and
Okay,
said, the oil discussion has now been removed.
okay,
So,
but you do understand that under the last agreement, 99% of products traveling between our two countries had no tariffs on
well,
it.
it also helps boost America's economy if all the prices are regulated in the right way. So if you're giving us and not to be rude, I'm not saying that Canadian steel or aluminum is trash, but I'm just saying it would open up the mines. It would also bring back factories in America. It would bring back a revitalized thing. Now, it would bring workers back also. It would build factories, manufacturing, and everything that's needed.
Okay.
America is still as robust in resources, and oil is a part of it also. And we find it every day of our lives down here. Now, Alberta is great. but you got to look at Alaska. I mean, Alaska is very rich in oil. Also, a lot of our coastal areas are very rich in oil. Now, it's not a discussion of who's going to win out in this argument. You guys are very rich in resources too. I'm not saying you're not, but you have a very generally low population compared to America.
Okay.
That's
Well,
all I'm saying.
I'm asking again, what is the end game for you with all of these issues? Because it sounds to me like you're on board the Trump train of essentially
No,
taking over
see,
Canada,
the issue is when you're saying I'm a part of the Trump train. I said I'm a centrist,
but you voted for him.
and I will vote for anybody that believes in America first. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a person that believes in their own country, as you do, don't you?
I
But we don't
absolutely I
tank
do.
other.
No, no,
We
no.
don't try to
See,
tank other countries though,
but we're
and
not
say
taking.
we're going to come and take. Excuse me, but we were told to be the
I get where
51st.
you're
That
coming from, but that's a bluff. I get it.
no,
Right.
well,
That
when you
was
say it
that was
once,
a
it's a
bad.
ha ha ha. You say it twice, it's kind of like now I'm getting like nails down the chalkboard. You
I
do it
I think
two,
what
three, four, and
wait a
five, and
second.
six times. There's more. That's not a joke anymore. There's a little bit of seriousness in there.
Yeah,
And so when you come in and take all of those things and you start talking about a tap that doesn't exist, but you're going to come up and turn that tap on and get that water to run down to, California and all that stuff. Well, again, that's not going to happen. But hey, if we keep exploring in the north and the temperature keeps going up, well, you don't have to worry about a tap because we'll all be swimming. I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm
think
listening to
even
you
if the
call us centrist,
polarized
but you
caps
voted for him, and
melted, it would not flood the entire world. It
Okay.
I
originally
have to tell you, if the
Hang
north
on. Okay.
flooded, it
I'm
would.
I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna Florida. I want to give you a chance to chime in here. So Florida, please go ahead, and then beautiful. I'll get back to you, and then I'll go to you, Justin.
yeah. I mean, I think when we talk about the oil that the United States is refining and reselling, it's because it's bitumen, right? It's the bitumen oil. It's very crude. It's not. It takes a lot to refine it, and we have the refineries to do it. That is the reason why it's sold so cheaply. It's not because there's this awesome deal that y'all are giving us. It's because we have the refineries to do it, and y'all don't. And if we don't buy the oil, who's going to buy it? I mean, who are you going to sell it to? You're not going to sell it to Canadians. Canadians aren't going to be able to buy enough to supplement the economy, right?
Okay, well that's a complete lack of understanding about how our economy looks. Unfortunately, Florida, that's just completely off base. Now, as
Okay.
far as we have international, just like you, there are other international markets that we can explore with our oil and gas, no different than America can.
Does it take more to send it overseas than it does to
Yeah,
ship it
it
down the
does.
road?
And here's the thing.
Uh,
Actually, Florida, you're right because the refining issue is there's no other country that has refining abilities like America.
So can I chime in here for a moment
I
and
mean,
just
Go.
yeah.
honestly, hold on.
Uh,
so
Just honestly, you're laughing, but like honestly, tell me the refineries that you have to refine
so
all that very crude
I can
oil.
comment. I can
Go
comment
ahead.
The
on that.
Atlantic
Yeah, go
Well,
coast.
ahead,
good. I
Justin.
mean, it's the
Sure,
same
give
thing
it to
I've
me.
been saying about
Well,
America.
Okay, gentlemen,
so
hang on,
America,
just in time.
America retooled all its refineries when it did an agreement with Canada and Mexico to buy the heavy crude so that it could refine the heavy crude. So 70% of your refineries, all they can do is refine heavy crude now. If, in fact, you can't get heavy crude, you cannot refine the Saudi Arabian crude. It's not the same process. So now you are also in the ditch because your refineries are not built to refine the Saudi Arabian crude. Yes, it's a little lighter, but that's not what your refineries are built to do. They're built to refine heavy crude. Now, in terms of who else wants our crude, we have a pipeline. It's called the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It goes all the way to the west coast of Canada, and it pumps 1 million barrels a day if we wanted it to. And we haven't wanted it to, but it is going now to China because China has asked us for oil, and we're now moving oil Our new prime minister is brilliant. He's an economist. He is brilliant. He's running circles around everybody. And he is moving that oil elsewhere. And we can also move it by rail. Yes, it's more expensive, but we'll get more money for it than we're paying than we're selling it to the Americans, to you guys, because we had a really good deal with you with the free trade agreement, but now it's broken. We didn't break it. You broke it. So that's the refinery issue, and that's the supply issue. Yes, we can move 1 million barrels a day elsewhere just on a pipeline. One of them.
You're
Just a
right.
million barrels.
I said 100% that yeah, we did retool refineries, but it can be retooled back the
Yeah,
other
I
way.
mean,
It's not like we can't retool it, and
On
it
4 million barrels a day, you
and it
can't
won't
retool
take.
4 million
Hey,
barrels a
and
day in a week.
here's the
So,
thing. Here's the
Florida,
thing. Is it?
Florida, I gotta
Go
ask you
ahead,
a
buddy.
question about that. Where would you rather buy oil from? Canada or the Saudis?
Canada, of course.
all right, hang on.
Uh,
I gotta ask a question. What about like Biden during his term shutting down the Keystone Pipeline after Trump during his first term wanted it built?
Uh, okay, so Justin,
I'm just asking
how
because
Justin, how familiar are you with the Keystone thing?
So the Keystone Pipeline was actually quite a bit more complicated than that. It was only
I know
partly
whenever
constructed.
Indian reservations, things like that.
Yes,
Is
that's
that what you're
correct.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that created the challenge. It wasn't particularly Biden that shut it down. It was the indigenous population that wouldn't allow the pipeline to travel through their territory.
All right.
So
So hang
it,
on. I gotta
it's
ask a
still an
question.
issue.
Do you think that? I mean, we're not talking about like taking out huge areas of indigenous people's lands. Just
That
you
wasn't
know,
the issue. The issue is if there was a spill, it would ruin their area.
yeah. But I mean,
And
number one,
pipelines
how
are
many times
notorious
have
for
there been
spillage.
spill on
And
pipelines?
it's not ever if there's going to be a spill, it's when there is a spill.
Yeah,
I
there's
agree.
lots
I
of them,
mean,
unfortunately.
inevitability always
Yeah,
does happen. I agree.
yeah.
But this is the
Unfortunately,
inevitability also.
there's lots of spills. Just Google it. You'll see how many spills have occurred
All right, so hang
all
on,
across.
Justin, I gotta ask a question. So
Sure.
you agree that there should be a pipeline that goes to BC, Canada, right?
Well, there is a pipeline that goes from
I mean,
Alberta
it's
through
from
BC
Alberta,
to.
right? Yeah. Okay.
There is
So
one now.
you know, there's a pipeline that goes through a lot of areas.
Yeah, the pipeline that
Are
went
you
from
okay with
Alberta
it?
to
I
British.
mean, are you? I'm just asking, as a simpleton, are you very okay with these pipelines? I mean, I know they
Absolutely.
may rupture.
Yeah,
I know there
yeah.
may be things that happen, but are you okay with it?
Yeah. And let me tell you how this pipeline got built.
No,
Okay.
no,
When I say
yeah, I get it. You're gonna
well,
sit there and
yeah,
tell me the semantics of it, but you
no,
agree
no,
that all other pipelines are okay. But you're telling
sure.
me, okay, this pipeline causes hazards.
But
So did this.
Flintlock, I think you're missing the point that it
No,
wasn't the
I'm just trying
government.
to understand. I'm a simpleton. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
but
understand if
it
all
wasn't any.
pipelines are bad, right?
Yeah, no. What he was saying is that that particular pipeline was shut down by the indigenous peoples whose land that pipeline was going to. That had nothing to do at a government level. The government requested the pipeline to go through. The indigenous people said no way, which is absolutely their right to do. And that's what shut it down. So at that point, unless you're willing to cede that land and start that whole entire colonization thing again, how else would you do it?
You guys know you're from basically the European countries.
Yeah.
Okay, colonizers.
Well, I'm
Oh,
actually Lakota Sioux, so
But
this is my territory.
ah,
uh,
I knew I had the right guy to
S-
come in here. So
Mr.
Justin,
Flintlock, you'll be
yeah,
happy to hear that my chief is Sitting Bull, and I'm sure you're familiar with that name.
Whatever you want to say.
No, that's who my chief is. My hereditary chief is Sitting Bull in the Lakota Sioux Nation. We slaughtered Custer and then fled to Canada. And the Northwest Mounted Police, our police force here, stopped the Union Army at the border and said, nope, we're harboring them here. They've asked for refugee status, and Canada, bless their hearts, kept us. So, yes, the pipeline, I wanted to let you know, the pipeline that went from Alberta to British Columbia, there was an enormous challenge getting through. We had to bypass a bunch of indigenous areas. So the pipeline cost went from like 10 billion to 40 billion for us to build it because we had to move it all around indigenous land so that we wouldn't spoil watersheds and all kinds of other things that would create a problem.
Justin. This is what bothers me. So you're literally doing all this. It went up from 10 billion to 40 billion, right?
And the government paid for it. Government Canada paid for it.
I mean, no. The government doesn't pay for anything. You got to remember that. Government doesn't own, and so it was the people that were paying for it. First off, right?
I mean, an oil company didn't build it, so I'm sorry, you're right. The taxpayer paid for it.
Well, I mean, no, because usually during these kind of constructions, it's like a highway. Usually government pays for it. That's kind of like the quote.
Infrastructure. Yeah, it's infrastructure.
But I understand where you're coming from. But really what you mean is actually the people are paying for this, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's infrastructure.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just saying.
Okay, now to kind of bring it back a little bit here off of this topic, Mr. Flintlock. Now you said that you basically you're a Trump supporter, you're a centrist, but you voted Trump, and you figure that all of this stuff right now is just going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. Is that correct?
As far as I know, I'm just watching. You know, it's one of those things. Even if I voted for the left, right?
Yep.
I'm just watching. If I voted right, I'm just watching. We only have two political parties. We do have a third party, but the issue is it doesn't get much clout. There's no independent party. There's nothing of the sort. So, as far as I'm concerned, European politics, things like that, I kind of agree with that. Like where there should be like more party system in America. I mean, I kind of agree with it because number one, your voices should be the same thing as if you're independent or a centrist. You know, hey, I may not agree with this, but we shouldn't go too far that way. You know what I mean?
That is something that I would absolutely agree with you because we have a lot of issues with the two-party system here in Canada as well. So, beautiful. I want to get you back in the conversation here. So, thanks for being so patient.
Thank you very much. It's all right. I appreciate that. I get it. People have things that they have to say. Um, just simply fact, if I'm not sure where we're going to sit here at this point in time, but in going back, if we go to the situation with, if you wanted the original topic, radical about Denmark,
Yep.
at this stage, I'm ready to make salad dressing with all the oil talk. I agree with it and I guess it kind of, and I'm saying this because it goes back to what my point was about being told that we would become, another state. When you start walking into other countries and just saying, well, we'll take over Greenland, and again, Greenland is owned by by Denmark. You just can't walk in and take something. So I guess I have to ask the question of why does someone think that that's okay? Like that's a feeble-minded idea that you can just do that. This is not a game of risk, and unfortunately, I see that this current regime is exactly what is happening. Is that they're thinking that this is what it is, and we'll take this and we'll take that. Well, last time I checked, everybody's on the current, real estate clearance market. I know we are not for sale, so I'm trying to figure out still why someone is thinking that you can take over countries. And I am very concerned that if the thought of taking over someone else's country, that you can just go in and take it. Like, what is the point? Why is the point of trying to take Greenland? Are we trying to take it solely for the resources? This is what I'm trying to figure out.
This is actually what I was, until we kind of got on a different topic about the tariffs and so on there. with Mr. Flintlock. What I really wanted to start the show out with is my personal belief right now is that the reason that they're going after Greenland is threefold. First and foremost, the mineral resources that Greenland offers. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
Oh,
Second of
absolutely.
all, its strategic location, its strategic
Mm.
value is
Oh,
huge.
yes.
And third of all, I honestly believe that with some of the comments that Putler made just a couple of days ago during one of his meet and greets or whatever the hell it was that he was doing, he made basically a comment about how important the Northwest Passage was and the northern shipping routes, which makes me kind
Yes.
of wonder, is Putler planning some sort of game plan where he invades some nation in the northern hemisphere that gives the US essentially the get go to say, hey, you see, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is why we need
Yeah.
Greenland so much. But ultimately, they are
Wait,
simply,
wait, hang on. I got
they're
this
playing
question for
against
you.
each
Who's
Hang
other.
on, please,
Pootler?
Mr. Flintlock. Our
No, no,
host is
I,
talking.
I know.
Hang,
Who's Pootler?
The person in
Vladimir,
Russia.
yeah, the
Oh,
guy in Russia.
okay, gotcha. I gotcha.
Okay. So that's my personal belief is that this is a threefold thing. The mineral resources, absolutely. The shipping routes, absolutely. But predominantly, this is a strategic ploy for the North because Greenland essentially sits right above the UK and Europe. If you can align that with Russia, Russia has a massive strategic advantage over the
Absolutely.
entire European continent, and that's what I'm
Absolutely.
worried about. MS, thanks for coming back up. Sorry we lost you there earlier. What do you have to say about that?
Um, First, I want to apologize for my speech. I am at near end of life, and it affects my speech because of my disease. But I am an American. I have lived from coast to coast and in the Midwest. I am so ashamed of this country, so ashamed of how people can be so misinformed still, and how embarrassing it is that not only is it wrecking every policy, is to destroy everything here, but it's to disrupt the lives of every other country in the nation. Today, he threatened France that if their companies didn't change their DEI policies, we would no longer buy from them. And
Yep.
he's got this world domination complex. He's dangerous. We all know that he ran and his his office was paid for by Elon Musk, and it is the most horrifying thing to end my life with. A quick story: I was in home palliative care. I had home health care doctors coming to my house and the palliative care nurses. I was on pain medication or my terrible chronic pain, and I have had to go off of on my own to protect myself. I canceled my palliative care, my
Oh,
home
honey.
doctors. I have withdrawn in the past 4 weeks off of every medicine that is on RFK's hit list, and it is all to keep from being forcibly removed from my home and put in a facility because they want to take my Social Security and Medicare. I cannot imagine anything worse than
So
what this man
I
is doing.
I can definitely
Skillard,
feel
I'm
you.
gonna no, hang on. Please allow her to finish. Just Emma, so I'm gonna let you finish here, but if you are not speaking, please keep your microphone off. I will get to you, Skillard and Danielle, in just a minute here. Please allow MS to finish. Go ahead, MS.
If I had been physically able, I haven't left my house in like 3 years. I'm not able. And I'm in a wheelchair. I, if I could have gone anywhere, even without a dollar, I would have ridden my wheelchair and crossed the Canadian border. I would have gone to Mexico. I would have gone anywhere to escape this country. And it is horrifying to imagine what life is going to be like for my grandchildren. I will land my plane.
Uh, I am a little bit of a loss for words,
All
MS.
right, can I say something? MS Strong, where do you live?
Currently, I'm in North Carolina.
All right. Well, honey, trust me, as an American that lives in Kentucky, I'll do anything that you need necessary. And trust me, there's nothing that's going to happen with whatever they've been saying on the fake news. My dad is 67 years old, and he keeps getting these things, and it's a fear tactic. Trust me, Trump isn't after anything because as being 40 and looking at every generation, we've always taken care of our sick or elderly and everything like that. I've always learned from
He
them.
considers us to be undesirable people,
U.S.
and
Strong,
he does not want people who are handicapped and sick to have to be in public view for normal people. This is god awful truth
I don't know where you're getting that information
from
from. If you
him.
can,
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Radical will tell you that I back
Yeah,
my facts.
it's so yeah, Flint, I'm just gonna mute you here for a minute. The reality is they are coming after your Medicaid. They are coming after your Medicare. They're sinking the farmers. They're sinking small business with these tariffs. They are increasing your costs, and I'm not really too sure what it's going to take for you to realize that this is going to happen. So, Skillard, welcome to the show. Thanks for being Daniil. I'll get to you right after.
Thank you. Yep.
Skillard, if I could get your age and a rough location of where you're from.
Sure, absolutely. I'll be like 41 in a few days, but I'm from East Coast Canada.
All right. You've been listening in. What do you have to say about all this?
Yeah, and I really feel for MS Strong, and I work in a long term care facility and rehab, so I kind of been touched by her story, and what I really was disheartened about is that you felt like you had to take yourself off of all that benefits and not and not trust your healthcare and your doctors and and don't and you can answer this or not, but like, are you your own POA? It sounds like you have your cognition and you can make your own decisions, right? Like a person of authority, like you can sign off, like
I definitely can, but when I talked to my doctor before I did this, he told me that he thought that I was making a very smart decision for myself, that it was very warranted what was happening.
that you would take pull like all benefits and all social and supports and all that. Like he signed off on that. That's kind of discerning because there's so many supports out there. But sadly, in the United States and where you live, like in Canada, we have free healthcare, but we pay a higher tax for that. But
for everyone to get the same benefits, but where U.S. is it's insurance. You better be working, or you better have a good family that can provide. Like it's there's a lot of decisions that have to be made down south there, where Canada we don't have to worry about that. And in your position, you are in a terminal. You have a terminal disorder issue, right? MS is
Yes.
you have a shorter length than all of us, and I just wanted to just appreciate that for everyone to understand. But what I feel bad for, just because I live in long term care and we're always about compassionate care and making sure that everyone's comfortable at their end days, but that were people that signed up for that support. And then the fact that you felt like you had to take a doctor's opinion and say, bow out, I feel like each, I don't know why that was said, but I feel like there could be better supports out there for you
It it
and have a better
wasn't
quality.
it wasn't his suggestion. I had to let him know that I needed to know how to titrate off of these 5 powerful medicines I was on, and I had to let him know that I had let the palliative care and my home health doctors and all, that I had released them because he manages everything. So
So it's a trust issue. Like, would you rather be unmedicated at home without any supports or professional help? That sounds like a horrible way to end
this
your.
is a miserable, I never thought this would be the end of a life well lived, and I am mortified that the fear is so real. And I am not a fearful person. I am a mindful person. I do a lot of research, and I know what he has planned for us. And this whole thing of taking Social Security is because it is a self-funded, um,
Right. Right.
and
Social
he wants
Did you get a
that
second
money.
opinion by any chance, or did you just take that and say, you know what, I trust that? Because that's your life, right? Like no one here or your doctor, no one can control what you decide, right? If you have a sound mind, you get to decide what you spend, what you do with your medical. Like, you could be a DNR tomorrow. You could be do
Which I've
that.
already done all that. I've
Right.
already signed all those papers and got them on file.
So are you just I don't like I feel like you're not wanting to be a burden to anyone else.
No,
And
I
just
don't want to be ripped out of my home and taken to a undisclosed facility with no communication with my husband and my children and grandchildren, and them not know where I am because they're planning the same thing for us that they did for ICE.
so it's
It
not just
is
about the money and like if you would save your life, you'd pay $1 million or be in debt for $1 million if you could save your life, right?
absolutely.
Or are you right? Okay, so you have a will to live, is what I'm gathering. You
I,
want to,
I would
right?
love, I would love to live a happy rest of my life, no matter if that's 2 days or if that's 10 years.
So why take the support and why listen to a doctor that just told you, it's not going to work anyway, like it's terminal disease.
Because,
So, but
okay, let me explain it a little deeper. They're
sure.
going to the pharmacies and to Medicare and to our records, and people that are on any kind of narcotics, benzos,
Yeah.
who are on home health care and all that are put on a list. Even if you have, took ADHD medicine so I could focus because I have brain damage from the three
I'm on
diseases.
ADHD medicine as well. I am
Yeah,
Concerta. Yeah.
yeah. He's even added diabetics to that list of who should be deemed as hopeless, and that's
Mm.
why he figures that
Are
if he.
you and please do not
Okay,
answer any questions that you don't
guys,
feel uncomfortable. But you
hang on,
said you're
guys,
in wheelchair,
hang
right?
on, Skillard. I'm just gonna this MS. I really want to. I don't want to diminish anything that you have to say here or your position. But I'd like to move the topic along a little bit if we can here, and I'd like to get Danielle a chance to talk as well.
I agree, and I will step down. And I appreciate people listening because that's the only way they know what it's like for people here. And I love all you people. I
Thank
respect
you,
you
Amos.
all, and
Good for
I'm
you.
so sorry for what we're doing to y'all.
MS,
Thanks,
just know that I
MS.
have you in my thoughts, and I know that you are a warrior. I know that this is a very difficult struggle, and just know that I'm thinking of you, and I hope that hopefully that things do not become as crappy as what is projected, because you deserve to have as much care taken of you and for you as anybody else. It does not matter what your issue may be or your ailment, whatever ailment is. It should be treated, and you should be treated with respect. It doesn't matter, like you said, if you're here for the next 2 days or the next 20 years. So
Thank
just
you
know
so
that,
much.
I just want you to, you're a very strong woman, and I hope you stay that way.
Thank you. Peace be
Uh,
with all of you.
MS, just a last word. Part of what I do here is for the exact same reasons that you're talking about within my own family. So, all my love, hun.
Love to y'all. Bye bye.
Much love.
Daniil,
Hey guys,
don't need to ask you your age. I think your age sticks out there like a sore thumb for all us old fuckers. So,
I'm
welcome to
pretty
the
old.
show. What do you have?
Thank you
what
guys.
Thanks for coming in. What do you
Uh,
have to say about all this? Moving
well,
on, but I do want to mention I don't think that MS is entirely wrong because anybody who's read the projected paperwork for Project 2025 knows this is about as serious as a heart attack. So, Daniil, what do you think?
I totally agree with her with everything that's going on. The only thing I can engage to is promise that I'm going to do everything in my power every day of the rest of my life to make sure that her grandchildren and my grandchildren and my kids live the best prosperous life of freedom, free speech, free thought, peace, hopefully. But it's not looking good. But I will do my part as best as I can.
Elbows up, Daniil.
Exactly.
Uh, Mr. Justin, we'll get back to you, and then Mr. Flintlock, we'll get back up to you there.
I just
Justin, the
wanted to.
time. Yeah, Daniel, go ahead until Justin jumps in there.
All right. I just wanted to add that, well, to each his own, but I'm a strong liberal Mark Carney supporter. I like the values and humbleness this man stands for. So I just wanted to add that. And I guess, like, whoever does know me from here and whoever looks at my posts, you'll see it right away. That's what I support right now.
Right on. Thanks, Daniel. Justin,
Sorry, Mr. Rudd, I'd like to step away for a minute. What was the conversation?
uh, I don't know if you caught any of Emma Strong's thing there,
I
but
did.
yeah. So my own personal belief is, and I do this as much for my personal benefit as I do for my family's benefit because we have two kids with serious health issues, and the stability of our world is a huge concern for me and what their life looks like. But we know without question from the
I'm
Project
sorry.
20.
He's taking a shit right now.
Something
Justin, I'm
is
going
with
to
my.
mute you there. Sorry, Daniil, I'm gonna
Fucking
mute
gross.
you there. We're getting a lot of feedback here, guys. Um, so essentially, if we look at any of the Project 2025 paperwork, without question, they are coming for people with special needs. It's a huge concern to myself. They're coming after vulnerable people at the end of the day.
You know why?
I would
Because they
have to
don't
agree.
produce income tax.
Well, that's the part of it. Again, you're not those that are in the lower end of the bracket who could be on disabilities or anything like, payment styles don't pay for the tax style of things. And people do look at many in that regard that they are lazy, that there's nothing wrong with them, and they're burdens on the system, which isn't the case in many cases. And in a lot of cases, that there are things that again, due to issues of lack of health care because of lack of doctors and taking it so long to have testing done, and you take forever to get a specialist for this and blah, 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 blah. Things go by. People do naturally ignore things and they let them go. And it's just like, oh, well, I'll deal with that later. Oh, I'll let it go. And then by the time you realize, geez, my back really hurts, you go and find out, oh, by the way, you got stage 4 pancreatic cancer and you got 3 months to live, right? So again, there's all kinds of factors. If you are not, thinking that the healthcare system is great, you are not going to go if you ignore those kinds of things. But we need to make sure that the people who are most vulnerable are being treated with the most respect that they should be. And if they make a choice that they may no longer want to be above, that should be on them to make that choice. I don't believe that I know people who have decided to go that route because of issues of, unfortunately, the big C in whatever form it is, and made that decision because they did not want to come down to it, but no one forced them to do that. And that's great that was the case, that was still their choice. But that is a fear for a lot of people that well, we'll put you here because, well, we'll just lump everybody together and but hey, if you want to exit stage left, we'll help you get there, right? And it's a possibility. A lot of people look at it because they can't afford the medications, the treatments, to have home care, to do all of these things. They're not cheap. Those things do cost extra sometimes, and it's a real burden. And so I think that we do need to be focused on making sure that we do help our most vulnerable. Doesn't matter if they're, brand new infants or if there are, our geriatric end people or anybody in between.
That's why,
We
like,
can't just do that.
caregivers get a benefit in Canada if they
Not
have
all
a
of us do.
disability children. They have they can
No,
get funded
not all of
for
us do.
taking care.
I
In
am a
Canada?
caregiver of, I am a caregiver for the last 20 years. I left my job.
Okay.
I have been taking
Yep.
care of my mother. And unfortunately, due to my father's death, or passing, he no longer is here. The benefits that she receives from his pension pushed her over the edge. And so, no, it's classified as, well, no, you don't, you can pay for that yourself. There's no benefit paid to me.
So 20 years
Um,
as a caregiver for your mother, you didn't receive benefits up until like 3 years ago because that's where like the grandmother, grandfather benefit, like someone who's taking care of their mother or their children that are disabled, you get benefits from that. So I don't understand why
as I
20
just
years
said to
you felt like that was the
That's
same.
like it's not true. That was something that was available, at least in the province of Nova Scotia. I can't speak to the rest of Canada, but definitely in the province of Nova Scotia, that was
I'm
available.
in
But
PEI,
it was
so what
not
PEI
available
and
to.
Nova Scotia do
Okay.
are the same.
All
Well,
right.
again, I can't fight with you. I'm telling you what I have been told. And again, she is apparently makes too much money, but not enough money to, really get anybody to come in here full time. So it's me that's still here full time. So no, I
Yep.
have not received any money to take care of
All
my
right.
mother.
Skillard, I'm gonna have to shut you down here a little bit. The one thing I will mention on that particular topic is all of these things are directly under provincial jurisdiction. So just because it's received in one area now, I get there are federal grants to particular things, but most of these things revolve around provincial government ties. So I want to go back up, Mr. Flintlock. You've
So
been
you don't know
listening
about
in.
the
You haven't had a chance.
caregiver rebate. You don't know about the caregiver rebate. If you did,
Okay.
you would understand that was just a new thing in the last 4 or 5 years. He's talking 20 years ago. He was a caregiver to his kid, his mother, and then his father died. God rest his soul. He didn't receive benefits unless his father died within the last 5 years. Then yes, he would have. But 20 years ago, you were not just strictly a caregiver. You would have to been applied and been hired in a facility to be a caregiver. Other than that, you were just a family member, not receiving benefits.
Okay. All right, thanks, Gillard. I'm gonna shut the conversation down on that particular topic, and I want to get back to more what we were discussing a little bit earlier than that. Uh, Back to this obvious tension between the trade here between Canada and America. So, Mr. Flintlock, you've heard a few things from kind of Canadian perspective. Has any of it changed your mind or influenced how you see anything about what's happening here in Canada?
All right. Well, sorry.
Yep,
No, really, nothing has changed my mind. Number one, you talked about Project 2025.
I did indeed.
Yeah, that confirms it to me.
Tell me what it confirms to you, because this is
Yeah,
written
because
out
you
by.
think the idea is taking over territories and, being basically a Nazi state. Yeah, that's not what's happening. The issue is you guys believe in one belief, while centrists and anybody like us actually believe that we should be free and be able to speak our mind. Also, here's a better question. Do you believe Europeans, like the UK? No. Do you believe they're being arrested for saying something, for speaking their mind? Do you believe in freedom of speech?
Do I believe it? Yes, up until you
All
are
right. But
directly.
do you
Hang on,
think you should be arrested?
hang on.
No. Do you think you
Hang.
should be arrested for saying something?
Okay, you
Do
cut
you
me off there.
believe if you're
Hang on.
against an opposition, do
You're
you
cutting
believe
me
that
off
you have.
there.
No, I'm
You're
cutting you off because I want to make sure that you're going to say it and the freedom that you have the right to say
okay.
what you think.
So why are you railroading the question? You are allowed to have
No,
free
because
speech.
you've already
However,
railroaded the question.
However, you are not free from the consequences of your actions. If you
I
decide to
agree.
put,
But do you
if
believe
you,
that you have freedom of speech? Does it harm anybody?
does it harm anybody? Again, it depends on what type of freedom of speech you're talking about. If you're talking about inciting an
I work
insurrection, then
around a
no.
lot of steel workers, and trust me,
Yep.
there is freedom of speech, and we all work together. We laugh together and everything like that. I don't need an HR department to tell me that we don't get along together. But also at the same time, do you think our government should be allowed to tell you what you can say and not say?
About as much as I feel the government should be telling women whether they can or can't have an abortion. But that comes directly from your
Agreed.
side.
No, I agree with you. That's the reason why I'm a centrist.
But you voted for the guy that is basically looking
He's
at
not
nationwide
taking
abortions.
away from anything that would not have a woman not to have an abortion.
Okay,
There are
so,
states, there's localities. You got to
okay,
remember, I live in
He
America.
loaded the Supreme
are,
Court with people who were going to vote
No,
against that.
yeah,
first off, shut up about that because number one is send it down to
Whoa!
the states.
I'm a woman and I
okay,
expect you to respect me. I have not
I
spoken to
don't
it, sir.
have to
I have to be.
respect
Wait
you.
a minute. I'm speaking.
yep, no,
Don't ever do
goodbye,
that.
yep,
Better not.
Wow.
yep, no, Not interested in that. Yep, nope,
Belly to
not
way.
That's,
interested in that.
yeah. Thank you.
Alrighty, so
Well done.
Super Grand, welcome to the show. Uh,
Well, thank you
sorry to
very
have
much.
to. Yeah, that was quite the framing for your intro here.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad I didn't have to cope with him. I think he was a bit in the cups, as they say. Uh,
It's quite possible. Yep.
yeah, I'm a big Carney fan, and I'm actually very excited. I'm pretty sure that he's going to get in, and I think that it's going to save democracy in Canada.
True.
Right
Yeah,
on.
I think the thing that
What's
probably
your reason?
upset
Give
me,
me one reason why you think that.
well, the fact that he can arrest people without warrants is one of the most terrifying things that's happened in my lifetime. He could just scoop people off the street and deport them without any legal recourse whatsoever. I mean, that is barbaric. There's a Canadian woman in British Columbia, a Vancouver woman who was working in Los Angeles. We all know
Who are
about
you
her.
talking about? Who's he?
Uh, and she was working in Los Angeles, and her work visa. She had a Canadian passport. Her work visa
This is
expired. She
like
went to the.
misinformation.
She
Who's
went. She
he
went.
you're talking about?
Can I
Skeller,
finish what
can
I'm
you
saying,
stop
Killer.
please?
interrupting her, please? Can you
She
stop
went to the border
interrupting her?
to ask for a renewal, and she was arrested, disappeared, disappeared,
I am.
disappeared. Oh,
Nice.
thank you very much. I did not want to deal with that. And she was literally disappeared with no contact with anyone. First in a jail for 2 days, and then moved to an ICE facility. Never allowed a
Yep.
phone call.
Yep.
Kept for 2 weeks. That is bloody terrifying. I recommend that no Canadians try to get into the States now for any reason.
Justin, go ahead there.
Yeah, this is the from the previous kind of quite disrespectful individual there who left with in a flurry. This is a hallmark of a right wing ideology. And so Super Grand, you're right on the mark. Carney would have been a progressive conservative 20 years ago, believe it or not.
Yep.
He's now a liberal, but he's much more conservative than he is a liberal.
I
But
was a progressive
faced
conservative
against
20 years ago.
there
I
we
worked
go.
for the
Yeah,
party
he's
for
very
7 years.
attractive. I voted for Mulroney. I mean, and I liked him, but I didn't like Harper. Harper's too far right. But the problem with these right wing governments today, including the Americans and our PP, is they have this ideology that you run a country like a business. And Mr. Radical, this speaks to your issue earlier. You run it like a business, you can fire your least effective employees without any recourse.
Yep.
And so that's the less, that, these are the people that need help in our country. You can't do that in the country. You got 10 or 15% of the country that is underprivileged, that is handicapped, that is challenged. Your responsibility when you're in a country is to look after everybody in the country, not just the high performing people in the country.
Yep.
And
And here's
this is the
and
philosophical difference.
yeah, I want to throw this out there as well, Justin. One of the things that frustrates me to no end when we talk about this particular subject matter. What we have to understand about the finances of people that are on disability or whatever the case may be, almost all of their dollars go right back into the community for the basics. There isn't special needs people that are on disability that are hoarding tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're getting off of the government because most of their money goes right back into the immediate community. So it's not only a boon and benefit for them, but it's a boon and a benefit for the community in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. There's nobody on a pension that needs that money for basics. Vacationing in Mexico, they're living day to day, and the government is making sure that they've, got housing, they've got enough money to eat. My brother is one of them. He's on, support. He's on pension, old age security. He's challenged. He had a brain injury at birth, and he's never held a really good job in his life and couldn't. but the government in Canada looks after those people, whereas the conservative wing, as it is constructed today, is again looking at the top 1% as their focus, not at the bottom 5 or 10%. And that's the challenge we have as we watch Mr. Trump do what exactly what I just described, which is look after the 1%. You know, they're coming after Social Security, and you know why? They need to generate about $1 trillion a year in savings in order to fund his tax cuts to the top 1%.
Yep.
The only place you can
Yep.
get that is from Social Security. It's the only place you can get it. There's no other
Yep.
place to get it.
Yep.
And the top
And
1% never paid
yep.
into that. That's all of us and our parents that breaking work that did that. Right? The top 1%, when you look at the tax brackets and you look what they've been getting away with for all this long, we've been carrying the load on our backs, our parents' backs, and our grandparents' backs. And now they want to change the wording and call themselves, instead of billionaires, they want to refer to themselves as oligarchs. And they want to call themselves the top performers, but they're not the top performers. They're the top manipulators. They're the top thieves. All of those people have a big graveyard in their backyard, and they needed a graveyard to do the things they do to have the money they have to exist.
Yep, I would agree.
The measure of a great society is how it treats its most unfortunate people.
Yeah.
And Canada does a good job of taking care of us. I'm 81 and I don't have much, but I have enough. I feel secure. I even have enough to get a little bit of home help because I'm quite physically incapacitated. So every 2 weeks I can afford to pay someone to
Super
clean and
Brand, can
shop
I
for me.
ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. You sound like a lovely lady. Do you think that you are just, one of these people that are looking around going, I just have enough? Or are you getting all your needs met? Because I feel like there's a group of people that are just thankful to get what they get and they don't want to complain. But really, they could use a little bit more. Things could be a little bit better. We could, and I say this because I look after special needs adults around the clock in my home. So I know what they get and what they could take home. And they have to live and rent rooms from people like me for a reason, because most of them could not have any quality of life and rent a full apartment, not because they can't have that space and enjoy that space, but because they don't make enough month to month to keep up a space like
Oh,
And
I think you
I
broke up at the Arab, Mr. Radical.
that. Sorry, I said most adults with special needs in Canada have to rent rooms from families like me, not because they can't keep up that place, not because they don't want that place, but because they just solely can't afford that place.
Yeah, the poorest segment of society is still old people because we didn't earn our pensions. We depended on our husbands. And, pensions weren't split until the 90s. And I'm very fortunate that I did have a pension split and I have a little investment. So I'm doing okay, but I don't have much. I've got a 13-year-old car and my tiny little condo in a low rent building is not paid for yet, but I have everything I need. The older you get, the less you need. But I had
Yeah.
my last pet because I couldn't look after a pet anymore. But I'm
Right?
contented. The important thing to know
But
is
if you had an emergency, would you be able to cover that emergency? So your car breaks down and
no, I couldn't.
you
I
need,
couldn't afford to replace the car for sure.
that's my point.
I'd be on. Fortunately, we do have transportation. It may be just to doctors and that, but that's enough.
You're a sweetheart.
Your needs become fewer and fewer as you get older, and everything is more valued. I value more in my life.
Now,
Everything
one
I
of
have, I
the
Super
want.
Grant, I just wanted to point out, just
yep.
as to go along with it, and I think Miss Radical probably could give you a little bit further info about that too. If by chance, we'll go back to the situation of your car. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but I'm just thinking because of your age. My mom is 82, and I know that if there is something that she has to go to on her own, or with the other person that is my older brother. So he will go to appointments with her if he needs to. But she cannot get into every vehicle, again, because of a mobility issue. So, there are some groups, there should be organizations that would actually be able to help you with doing some things like that. And I wonder if there's anything else that they could assist you with as well, if
Oh
in
yeah, we've
helping
got
with
a very
stuff.
active senior center here in my hometown, and
Okay.
they provide all those services.
Oh, that's good. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear
I'm
that.
very, very fortunate. I really do feel very, very blessed.
Excellent.
Well, I am glad to hear that.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Super Grand. Just a little bit of site maintenance here. If you are just coming on board, welcome to the show. I am your host, Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here every Saturday at 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern, here on the Beaver Politics Network. Beaver Politics is for the peoples because we are the peoples. So I wanted to bring the conversation back around a little bit. We're drifting all over the place, and that's okay because it's been an interesting conversation. But I wanted to go back a little bit to as much as our previous guest kind of showed his true colors at the end there, the one thing that he did sort of display is this just general lack of apathy that a lot of Americans are kind of displaying this. They were all about no war, no war, no war. And now that Trump is talking about annexing countries, all of a sudden they're all about it. And it's rather a monumental shift as far as the generalized thinking of a country. And we've seen that happen now in a matter of about 2 months. By all means, uh, I mean, to me, even understanding how quickly these things can turn, how quickly that ability to switch basically or straight into war mode. Uh, I mean, human beings really haven't developed one iota in about 5,000 years here. Daniil, what do you think?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. It to me it doesn't make sense because from the start, look, it doesn't make sense. Take Trump for example. He's doing his spiel about he needs world peace. He wants peace in Ukraine because there's so many lives that are being lost. But yet he's bombing the hell out of Gaza, Yemen, you know? And I
Yep.
mean, guys, they're using the excuse that the terrorist group, the Hamas, I believe, is shooting down their boats, but their boats are bringing arms to Israel. That's what's happening. Israel made a deal when they met with Trump to buy for I don't know how many, I think almost $1 trillion of war equipment. And they're trying to get them to Israel. And the terrorist groups are like, okay, hold on here. No way, you know? Why can't humanity understand that world peace is the only way to go? Look, I support everybody. What I support peace. That's what I support. So if you want my,
Daniil, I've often said that one of our worst traits as human beings is this inability to see ourselves as a globalized species. We tend to really, when we're looking at ourselves in a tribal sense, we really break it down. Well, I'm Canadian, or I'm Mayo, or I'm indigenous, or we really tend to want to break these things down. And while
yeah.
I absolutely, in a fundamental sense, have no issues with being proud of our past and our heritage, what I hope to see for the future that these things become something that is interesting about the human species rather than what defines the human species. Because at the end of the day, my opinion is that we live on a planet with a 99% extinction rate. It is not us against us, it is us against the universe.
Mm, I agree. I agree. And this is why humanity needs to fight for humanity. It's as simple as that. Earlier, we were mentioning things that, look, I'm going to be honest. I love the life I live right now. When I hear conservatives, and to each, like I said, to each his own perception, when I hear conservatives complaining about the last 10 years with the liberals, I'm sorry, guys, but my kids are eating. My kids are not in the street. They have a roof over their head. My father in law lives with me because I built him an apartment downstairs. His dental was covered this week, or else it would have costed him $8,000. And I know that, unfortunately, the conservative don't have this belief. As a matter of fact, from day one, they're willing to take out the senior Medicaid. And that, for me, for somebody that's actually taking care of his father-in-law, it's hard. No way. It's tough. It's just like whatever his name was, Skillard or whatever. Too bad he left, because I put my camera on because I was ready to to talk objectively on why liberal, why do I believe in that state of mind. But it's okay that we also kicked him out because he obviously wasn't open. So there's no talking to somebody like that.
No, and one of the big troubles about the way that I operate my lives is I want to bring everybody aboard and I want to give them a chance to speak.
Exactly.
But there's always a certain point where you tend to end up showing your true colors. And, for anybody that's tuning into the show, we absolutely want to get differing viewpoints. That's absolutely what. But as soon as you start to get derogatory or start name calling, that's when we're going to
Exactly.
shut you down. But we want to see all sides of the equation, but we want to
I
have it in
agree.
a respectful format that everybody can feel like they're being heard.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. That's a great mentality to have, like the objective side of animating a life. That's the best mentality to have. And I'm open to them expressing their, like, look, my posts have a lot of rebuttals from conservatives. I'm letting them know this is what I believe and why. I mean, they're calling Carney a criminal. Okay, explain why.
Yep,
There's no answer. There's no answer. It's blank. It's like that's like Trump, fake news, fake news.
yep.
Like it's same. Sorry, but it's the same mentality. If that's what I feel anyway.
I couldn't agree more. Justin,
Um,
I'll get to you, and then beautiful, we'll hear back from you.
Yeah, we must thank Mr. Trump for his behavior because it is about his first term. I said, the world needs another major skirmish, another WW to really realize what's up and what's down because we've lost our way. And thank goodness that hasn't happened. Well, what did happen is this abhorrent behavior by Mr. Trump, which has allowed Canada to now look and say, is that who we want to be?
Yep,
And yes, there is a percentage of our population who wants to be like that. There's no question about it. And it's enhanced because of COVID, because people have got all this angst that they're still hanging on to because COVID created that psychological, condition in people where if they were angry and jaded to begin with, they got more angry, more jaded, took it out on Trudeau because that's the easy thing to do versus look in the mirror and figure out why you're sad or upset about being locked up for 2 years. Well, okay, well, let's be clear. That's what happened. But the point
yep,
is, it snapped us out of it. It snapped us. Trump snapped us out of that lull that America is in. Part of the reason is we're much more educated than America is. We're like the fifth most educated population in the world. America's like 14th. They're way down the list. And that's what you heard from Mr. Kentucky. You heard that lack of understanding. I'm going to be as polite as I can be about that. But there's just no ability, I think, to be able to take in that information and synthesize it in a way that then will allow him to come up with a different decision. It's too hard
yep,
and
yep.
perhaps can't do it.
I talk about, I've made more than a few TikToks about neural plasticity, and it's a fancy, essentially, word for saying how much information can I absorb and how much of that information can I actually use in practicality? That's essentially the bottom line of what neuroplasticity is. And what we find is that neural plasticity really says where you fall on the political spectrum, because the further down the conservative gap that you go, the lower that neural plasticity becomes. And unfortunately, with that lack of neuroplasticity, they simply operate on confirmation bias. And I've stated so often that's why the 3 word slogans work so well and the memes work so well. It doesn't take a lot of processing, it's a quick, simple message. And that is what their essentially what their brain core will allow them to process. So as a result, we have a huge chunk of our population that's so easily manipulatable that it's unreal, and we have another part of our population, the predator class, that has no problem exploiting these people. So, beautiful. We'll go to you. What do you have to say there?
I'm in the same way of thinking of this because I don't know. I've seen. I think tonight is a perfect example. Um, how am I going to say this without getting anybody in trouble? Um,
Choose
I
wisely.
don't think that all the pieces to the Scrabble game are there. Is that the okay? Because I am a wordsmith. I am a writer. Words matter. Words are important, and yeah, and history is an important thing too. So there's where words come into play. You know, when you read the words, you find out what has happened. What happened yesterday, what happened last week, what happened 5 years ago, what happened 100 years ago, what happened 10,000 years ago. Um,
Yep.
but to see what is happening here, and again, I think that alphabet soup has got missing a whole lot of vowels, because something is not right, and I worry about people who are only solely focused on I'm looking down one little lane. I have these blinders that are such a tight view of things, and that's all I'm going to see, and I'm not going to listen to anybody else. Oh, I don't care. No, you might have truth, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that truth. And just because you hear something and you believe it and you repeat it to yourself a million times and you spread it everywhere, if it's still not a truth, it doesn't matter, right? If it's not a fact, you can believe it. It still doesn't mean it's true. And I think we're seeing that here with so many of them. And I have to say, the comments in here tonight, or like even in the panel, like, or not just the panel, but even in the comment section. And I'm just like, what is happening to the world? What is happening to the world? Like, I mean, I know I can honestly say it's been a number of years since I've been in high school and in university, but I think a lot of people need to learn a lot of history. I need to have a couple of refresher courses of something. Yeah, I think that needs to happen. Because if not, you're going to keep going down rabbit holes and believing things that aren't true. And it's not going to get us anywhere. So,
Can I add something real
Well,
quickly?
yeah, go ahead, Justin.
So this didn't come into my awareness until a number of years ago when I was watching Bill Gates be interviewed on TV by Oprah. And Oprah, this was just after he retired as the CEO of Microsoft and went on to be the chairman of the board. And she said to him outright, you know, you were a terrible, terrible boss. People said you were abusive towards them. You swore at them. You were demanding. And he put his hand up in the air and he said, you know what? I was. He said, and I didn't realize it until I thought about what happened. Why? I would ask them to do something with simple, and they wouldn't do it. And I got furious about it when they wouldn't do it. And when I realized that I had asked them to do something they were simply not capable of doing, but he said it took him 10 years to figure that out, that these people just, he said, well, it seemed simple to me, but they weren't at the level that I was thinking at it. And therefore, I got furious with them. And the challenge we have now is how do we get to that segment of our population and communicate to them in a way that allows them to not counterfeit themselves by voting in a way that clearly that population in the United States has, because they have counterfeited their own interests.
Yep. And you know what?
Thank you.
I have personal experience with that particular scenario. At one time in my life, I was a well site geologist out in the oil patch in Alberta, and I came across something that I hadn't seen before. And so when I talked to my boss about it, and we were looking at it, he at one point kind of turned to me and he goes, and it's like this, and it's like this, and how come you don't know this? Like, how is it that you just don't know this? And I said, well, I don't know, probably because I haven't been doing it for 30 years like you have. And I don't have that broad of an experience base that I've seen this time and time again or had somebody that appeared. But at the end of the day, being able to teach and lead people is it's a skill set that not everybody has. And what I've said often enough that so many people that achieve positions of power and wealth and substance, they didn't get there because of their best traits. They got there usually because of their worst traits. Miss Radical,
Mr. Redical, I have to step away. Thank you very much for the conversation. I'm going to drop out now, and I look forward to chatting with you next time.
just in time, anytime that you want to pop up in the box, please feel free to do so. Loved your knowledge base, love the way you approach the conversation. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon, good sir.
Good night. Good night to all.
Miss Radical, are you there? Gotta be busy. Super Grand.
I'll be here. I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Give me a second. I just had to put you down while I was buttering around. What are you at? What are you at?
Well, we just saw. I wanted to get back into the conversation about annexing other countries, but I think again, so much of what we're seeing with the Trump playbook is really about securing the northern fences with Russia, because I keep talking about the power blocks. If America can control the North American power block, and Putler and China control the Asian power block, and then America gets its hands on Greenland, there isn't a lot of places for Europe to go at that point, and I think at the end of the day, that's what this is really all about.
Um, I know that Trump said something. I've heard stuff about Trump wanting to stick it to China. I know that, Trump right now is working on isolation tactics. So there's no one to look to support Americans at this time, too. That's really important for him to do the work that he needs to do, is isolating, pissing everybody off, making sure nobody's going to come to America's aid during this time.
Yep.
They want the Arctic shipping channels. They made some comments maybe 2 days ago about the icebreakers. Well, they just got a couple icebreakers sitting there in Greenland. Well, that tells me is they want the icebreakers so they can start breaking the ice through the Arctic Channel. So there's a lot of reasons why, all incredibly nefarious. No good for
So,
Americans, no good for
yep.
anyone else.
So it really begs the question, what is it that they want to move that's so high priority through those waters? Super Grand?
Yes, I was a military wife for 32 years, so I'm very pro-military, and we have to enforce our sovereignty in the north. That is Canadian territory, and we have to defend it. Sure, Russia and the United States would love to have mastery over that route, that trade route, but it's ours. I'm sorry, and we're hanging on to it, and that's all there is to that. I had experience. We were in Germany 2 different times for 7 years, and in 1967 we were in southwestern of the southwest of West Germany before the wall came down. And when the Soviets rolled their tanks into Czechoslovakia, my ex-husband had to arm his airplane with nuclear weapons and take to the air. that was, you have no idea the fear in the West Germans. And that was a lesson I would never unlearn. And the
Yep.
other thing I learned about West Germany, I guess it's not as quite as good now since the wall came down and they had to look after the East Germans, but their system of socialism is unbelievably better than ours. They actually had 4 vacation weeks a year at a spa paid for by the government, and their unions were incredibly strong.
Yep.
Everybody was employed. In fact, they had to import Turks. You know, they had warehouses full of Turks that came in, made some money, and then went home. And so they had 0 minus unemployment. It was one of the most successful races on the planet. Extremely hardworking, but they'd had the lessons that came from the war, and they learned them well. They valued their freedom so much now.
Yep. I would totally agree. And I think one of the things that we need to do, be more proactive with as a simple society, is looking around the world at what works. We have examples of things that work really well. We have examples of things that don't work so well. So when I hear particular, avenues of attack that the conservatives tend to use, they love the whole green energy thing. But it always begs the question, why is it successful in other places? And it is successful in other places. Those damn wind turbines don't work in cold temperatures, but they seem to work in the North Sea all right. So, the amount of misinformation that they can spew about particular subjects is vast, but the fact that there's so many of these things but ready to pick up, but the fact that there's so many people ready to pick them up is what is constantly freaking me out about the world that we currently live in today. Daniil, what do you have to say?
I totally agree. I totally agree. I believe that people today are easily manipulated. I believe that, look, use the United States for example. He made half that population believe what he was saying. And then when it came down to tying boots and doing what he has to do, it was the complete opposite. It was the complete opposite. It was fascism. It was practically dictatorship. Supporting what I saw with Zelensky in the White House made me sick. Made me sick to my stomach. And to think that half that country agrees with what he did, it's astonishing to me. People are so easily manipulated and guided in a way that I've never seen before. And this scares me. I like facts.
Yep.
I like facts. I
Yep.
don't like, I'm okay listening to conspiracy theories and all this stuff, but don't try and convince me it's a fact. You know? To
But
me,
that's
actions
the
talk more than words.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, actually. It's one of the lessons that I really insisted on harping with my kids about is it doesn't matter what comes out of a person's gob if their actions don't back it up. If you want to know somebody's true intentions, see what they actually do, not what they tell you that they're going to do. So, Antisocial, welcome to the show. If I could get your age and a rough location, and then Honey Badger, we'll get to you.
Hey, what's going on tonight? Question: Beaver politics seems to be like kind of a trend. There's a couple of people that hold the
Hang on.
same.
Sorry, Antisocial, can I get an age just for
Oh yeah, no, I'm
security
40
measures
years
here?
old. I'm from Ottawa, and I wanted to shout out to Super Gran. I haven't seen her in a while, and I just wanted to say hi to her. But no, I'm in Ottawa, and I got 4 kids. Believe me, I'm well in the age of majority.
Excellent.
Yeah. But thanks for having me up, host. Really appreciate it. To the previous panelist point on Zelensky, yeah, that's something I can 100% get behind. To see the way that the only current, notwithstanding Netanyahu, a bit of a different story, but realistically, a sovereign nation being invaded by somebody else and a wartime president coming and sitting in the Oval Office, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump basically berating him and saying that you haven't said thank you, and just being incredibly disrespectful to him. That totally blew my mind.
Yeah.
Honey Badger, welcome to the show. If I could get your age and rough location for you, welcome back.
Well, I'm 50 years old, and you know what I think is I think there's a lot of young people over in this Ukraine stuff, and they're getting sacrificed. Is the way I look at it. To be honest with you, a lot of them don't want to be in on it. I mean, everybody wants to support it, and I've thrown it out there, and it's kind of sarcasm, big time. But it's like you want to support it. It's like you're more than welcome to go and stand on the front line. I mean, to be honest with you, and I don't really believe at the same time, like it's not that I don't believe it, but I mean there was rules broken way before this escalated to that with the Ukraine. And I just feel bad for everybody over there. Yes, I do. But I mean Canada donating and donating and donating to keep it going, I don't think that's doing anybody any favors. I mean nobody's children. I mean that's my belief.
Okay.
Defending
Uh,
themselves.
but Honey
Yeah, right.
Badger, if I could ask you the question here, now, uh, how is bowing down to an oppressor who has invaded your land going to stop the killing?
Well, there was agreements made back in the day where there were certain things that weren't supposed to happen within the Ukraine territory, right? And you know what? They're slowly being violated. And then it just came to that, and it was like, okay, well, okay, we got to stop this. And then it escalated. This
Okay.
happened years ago, right? I mean, it
Okay.
started, nothing's ever all of a sudden.
Okay. So, which things were being violated by Ukraine?
Well, you know, the NATO talks are one.
But Ukraine is not the only country that invaded that. You know what I mean? Like NATO expanded eastward for a long time. I'm
But
just
NATO
saying, and
is NATO not just for peacekeeping? Yes or no?
Yep.
NATO is absolutely for peacekeeping,
No,
not the way the US is doing it today with Donald Trump in the White House, but yeah, NATO
Yeah.
is supposed to be peacekeeping.
No,
no,
not
no,
it, that's
no,
not
no.
why NATO
NATO is
came
not. No,
about. No,
no.
that's not why NATO was.
NATO is a defense
Defensive
organization. It's not for
alliance.
peace.
Yes.
Not it, so the optic of peacekeeping. UN would be an organization that would be for peacekeeping, because NATO as an organization has never gone into a country to effort peacekeeping sort of enforcement or activities. NATO is a defense alliance, whereas Article 5, we've heard of many times before,
Exactly.
attack on ones, yeah. So, but it's not a peacekeeping organization. It's more of a defense organization, but
Strategic
more.
alliance.
There you go.
Defensive alliance. Yeah.
It's highlighted more on a wartime effort than it is a peacekeeping effort, if I may say.
I agree, but I just want to say, like, to Honey Badger, that I understand where he's going with this, because NATO made promises back in, we're talking years ago, that they will never expand eastward, and they
Okay.
did.
Okay, hang on. No, hang on, guys. Hang on. Okay, this I absolutely have to comment on because that is incorrect. The agreement that you're talking about was a verbal agreement just after the war. This was not something that was ever put in writing. And I want to bring this little piece of geographical information to this conversation that seems to be really skipping on a lot of people for some reason. Three countries that are NATO already border Russia. America is literally a stone's throw away across the Bering Strait from Russia. So this talking point about NATO moving in that direction to me is not a talking point. You are already bordering NATO countries. They wanted in Ukraine for the same damn reason that everybody in history has wanted Ukraine: access to the Baltic, growing opportunities to feed their people, Lebensraum, if I may be so bold, and now we're talking about rare earth minerals. So at the end of the day, that storyline is not a legitimate storyline. I'm sorry to tell you that, guys.
And the other thing is, NATO has never been an expansionist group. They've always, uh, allowed people to apply, but it's very, very difficult to reach the NATO standards.
To say that this situation with Ukraine is actually, again, a subsection of what happened with Crimea. This
Yep,
started long ago with Crimea. Now, we have to understand that when the USSR still existed, that was one thing. And then when that decided, hey, no, we're not doing this anymore, and Russia became its own country, and then we had Slovenia, Slovakia, all of these other countries that, part of the Czech Republic, all of this, all come together. The slow but sure taking back of land is what is happening. And when Crimea became annexed, again, they got reabsorbed by Russia, so that's a little piece them back for them. Please don't misunderstand. Ukraine did not start this. This has been going on for a
Absolutely.
while, and they should be standing up as anything and as higher and fighting, and we should be standing with them. We, in particular, as I say, Canada, because Canada has the second largest Ukrainian population outside of Ukraine. So yes, when Canada supports Ukraine, we are supporting our people. It is no different than anything else. And please
Well,
understand, there's been no money that has been provided. We provide equipment. Again, I'm a former Navy wife. We provide equipment that we are no longer using here, that whether it's outdated purposes and we have new things or whatever, but we still have it because it's a just in case, or we send it off for situations like this. So any equipment or any quote unquote monies that you think that we're giving them as donation is no actual cash. It is
yep.
equipment and it is supplies or it is food and medicines and bandages to take care of people. So this, yeah, I just again because I understand there's lots of people who may be down on the southern border of us who think, that we owe money or so and so owes money because we sent this to you, and that's not how those things work. And if there were
right, and
agreements that were
that's
made in Europe, then if Europe has gone in with those certain things, that's fine. That's a European thing. But going in with these treaties of NATO and the UN's, it's not that it's like a bank account that you're coming in and taking out of. That's not how it works. And just so anybody who thinks that, just so you're clarifying, that's not how that works.
well and beautiful. You make a great point. There are a lot of people that believe that we're sending pallets of dollars so that the Ukrainians can procure and buy
Exactly.
the equipment they need, which they're not. But this is what might be the controversial view. For the record, my parents, they actually took in a Ukrainian family whenever the war first started. Mother, father, two kids, fantastic, and it was a beautiful thing. I support Canada's position on the war in Ukraine, except the whole world, and this is where the geopolitics kind of comes into play. It's like, how involved is too involved to the point of pissing off Russia? Russia is a pretty big superpower, not unlike the United States. And it's for the general population of the world, we all agree that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not something that we have ever seen since like World War II, right? So we inherently disagree with it. But when you get into those higher level discussions, it's like, well, if Russia's so bold as to invade Ukraine, how do we both protect Ukraine, help Ukraine, but also protect ourselves? Because what's to say that Russia's not going to do this to Latvia, Bolivia, the neighboring states across the Russian border that was referred to earlier? And it's such a hard line to walk because yeah, passionately we're like, hey, we only know peacetime era, and we don't know one country invading another. In modern times, this is not something that we're familiar with. Now that this is happening, we're just like, well, that's not fair. But at the same time, it's like, well, it might not be fair, but this could happen again. And there's projection of Russia attacking a NATO country in either 2026 or 2030.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of on a dawn of a new era.
And I think that's the thing. I think especially you can see it with Europe again getting together because unfortunately, what can happen is with anything else, and you start picking at a scab, and it's not really that big of a deal, but you keep picking at it, then it's going to get infected, and if you keep picking at that, then it's going to get real bad, and it's going to get deeper, and if you eventually, you're going to have to learn to cut it off, right? And so that's the point. I think at this stage in the game that I think that when I look at the situation with France, they're really trying to make sure that Poland is protected. Because again, go back to the history of how everything had started from before. I don't want one repeat. I liked reading. I didn't like reading the history of what happened in those two previous, situations. But
No, it was a rough
that's
time. But the
exactly it. But
Associated
that's it
Press,
exactly. But we're
the
seeing it
Associated Press
slowly
just
as
ran a
happening here
story
now.
this past week that said, "Hey, European Union, we need to start thinking about bringing our preparedness efforts into the 21st century, and we implore all of our citizens." Was it 24, 27 countries that said, hey, we got to kind of unify this. Prepare yourselves for 72 hours in the event
Yeah.
of chaos. Now, somebody
Yeah.
would read that headline and go, oh, we're preparing for war. Do you think a 72-hour kit is going to get you through war? No.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, it's the mentality. It's like, hey, we got to start
But think of it.
thinking long term and start to think about your own independence as like a household, because you're not going to necessarily be able to rely on the government if stuff goes south, if you know what I mean.
Fair enough. But the thing again, I'm just thinking of this as and I'm not sure if anybody remembers this. It's probably about 13 years ago now. Nova Scotia had a number of bad wildfires, but one was so rampant, and everyone had to be like evacuated out of here. And the thing is to take enough for 72 hours because that's enough that they think, okay, just to be on the safe. That's like the standards, like even for hurricane situations, be prepared for 72 hours. I think the key with the 72 hours is that I think they are, and I'm again not quoting, but I think it's just a strategic thought, that if you are doing that, I think it's a matter of preparing them to get them out. And at least at the 72-hour mark, if you got your people out and you could get them as far, say, to England, well, then England, then from that point, you could get other ways to go, right? So
I
I
think
think
that
that's the
72
key.
hours is I think 72 hours is a benchmark. I've been a prepper for like 15 years, and it's not the fact that you've got enough food, water, supplies, what have you, to get you through the next 72 hours. I'm in Ottawa, Ontario. We're prepping for an ice storm, so naturally I kind of
Yeah.
made sure my generator worked and got some gas and what have you. And being a prepper, we're good. But the optic should be that 72 hours is a benchmark. But you know what? Do yourself a favor. Hone in some skills. Hone in some things that you maybe haven't thought. Go camping. Go and figure out how to build a fire. Go and figure out how to fix your roof. How to start living life that is completely unconventional. Because in the event that something should happen, and this is the line that is being towed right now, in the event that something catastrophic should happen, your government wants to be there for you, but the effort might take us somewhere else, and you might have to be a little bit more self-reliant. 3 days,
Absolutely.
72-hour kits are. I mean, 73 days is nothing, right?
No, I understand.
Most people in the prepper community look at like a month, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not that extreme where I have like a bunker, but if something catastrophic were to happen, whether it be a job loss or even something as simple as a major weather event, which we're experiencing as I speak, we're good for like, a couple months. I wouldn't have to leave the house for a while, right? So the optic is 72 hours is good, and collectively we can all make sure that we're not inherently reliant on the government. But also, let's think about the longer term. How do you purify water? How do you grow food? Stuff like that. I think that should be part of the conversation.
I'm
Well,
not going to disagree with you. I think they definitely should be a prepared situation, but I'm just simply going by EMO, the Emergency Measures Organization, from here. And again, it's a 72-hour kit. This is the reasoning as to why. I think it is, again, a standard situation. And more or less it is. I understand, make sure you have your food and whatnot, but I think it's also, if we have to get out, you got to be ready to go. And that's something that that's even what they're more thinking about in their mind than what they're worrying about. Do I have anything to eat at this stage in the game?
yep. Honey Badger, you haven't had a chance to chime in. Do you want to get back in the conversation there?
Well, I'm just kind of listening right now. I'm just interested in what people are saying, to be honest. Like, I'm just kind of taking in the conversation, to be honest. I mean, I do have a couple opinions. Like, I mean, people are talking about, like, it almost seems like the end of times. It's like, man, I don't see it like that at all, to be honest. I mean,
Well, it's not the end of
I don't
times.
think that
It's
anybody needs to be thinking about how you're going to purify water on your own or something like that. I mean, I just, I don't understand all that stuff. Like, I'll be honest with you, that part that doesn't make sense to me. I mean,
well, it's
what's
not it's not the end of times, but like a power interruption, even in like the best of times, when you're talking about your local municipality that has got a
this isn't
water
going to happen.
pumping station, if a power loss occurs, you can't be
No,
guaranteed that the water coming out of your tap is drinkable.
it's not going to happen.
It happens all the time. That's why
Well,
there's boil water advisories.
I hate to
If there's
tell
a
yeah.
you,
pipe
but
that's ruptured in your municipality, like a pipe burst or whatever, there's boil water advisories issued all the time. It's
Yeah,
not it's
honey.
not new. It's
Yep.
not a like
I'll
yeah.
back this up as well because in our areas, boil water advisories in the springtime are as normal as spring rains around here. And in our area in particular, if we knock the power out, we are incredibly dependent on two roads coming in and out of our area. So any sort of a natural disaster in our area would absolutely close our section of the Kootenays up, and it would be a struggle for a lot of people depending on how long that road was closed. So, Honey Badger, I love the optimism, but even from in our area when things are going good, even for us, we're always kind of half prepared because the water going down here is fairly commonplace.
I was just going to
Okay,
say,
you know
again,
what?
we had a hurricane
I
that
gotta
happened
say
here
something.
how many years
I
ago?
want to chime in. Let me say something, please, on
Yep, go
that.
ahead.
And you know what? I've never lived in a place that was like that. Now I can understand what you said because of what you said. You know what I mean? But I've never lived in a place that was like that.
Yep.
So maybe I came off the wrong way with what I said.
Well,
Okay,
here's an
because of
interesting
that.
thing, honey. One of the things that I believe that has made us so susceptible to a lot of the messaging and a lot of the programming that we're hearing out there right now is we have become so complacent in our society, so comfortable with having all of the basics basically right there at the snap of a finger. You need the police, you pick up the phone, you call them up. You need to call your brother, you pick up the phone, you call them up. You want to dig up some information, you get on the internet. You want some entertainment, you get on Netflix and watch a show. So we've kind of had all of these things that we've gotten, I think, very, very complacent that a simple power surge or a single massive magnetic storm could knock half of the planet out of electricity essentially for years.
Well, and the host, if I can add to that real quick, I mean, like I live in just outside of Ottawa, and I turn my tap on, I can drink the water out of it because the municipality that I live in has a water treatment plant. But where I work, and two places that I've worked, they're pulling from a well. This is water
Yep.
in the ground. And
Yep.
They have a well.
my commute is 30 minutes. It's Nepean, Ontario. It's not like a third world nation, but we still bring in water because
Yeah, but
you can't drink the water out of the ground. Why? Because there's no purification effort for the water being drawn out of the ground. So to say that I get it that you haven't lived in a spot where you can't drink the water, but where I work outside of Ottawa, you can't drink the water because it's not purified. It's not uncommon to think that water pulled out of the ground, doesn't matter where it is in the world, is healthier in the United States or Canada than it is in Africa, Europe. Well, Africa really don't have water, but
you
you get
understand
what
the
I'm
way
saying.
you understand the way a well in Ontario works, right? Like those are positive
I
pressure.
do certainly, yeah, and
They're
water is, and
100%.
I've lived in homes that have been on
I know
wells.
people that drilled wells in their yard, and man, they were there's a name for it. I can't remember it right now. I'm sorry. I'm just being stupid. But anyways, they're like artesian wells. That's what
Yeah,
they're called.
artesian wells, yeah,
And then
which basically
those
uses
things, man,
gravity, right?
they drilled down in, and they're like, man, what a chore they had after that. Let me tell you. I mean, they were flooding out their whole beach. I mean, like in the springtime, they're like, man, it's washing my whole land away. I got nothing but rocks. Like I'm trying to stop this.
Right,
I mean,
but
they
the earlier
did that,
point
right?
was
So
that we need to, like, the Associated Press was saying, hey, UK countries prep for 72 hours of instability. We'll call it chaos, whatever, and the optic of what could look like long-term purification of water. It's the rule of threes. The prepper community, that's what they say, the rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in harsh conditions, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So the water part, a bit more important. So let's figure out, hey, this is how you can make sure that you have water. It's how you have, some of the signs and symptoms of.
all I was really getting at, like, I mean, is we should have a lot more clean water up here for everybody that needs it. It should be an easy number, right?
All right, guys, I gotta thank you for like the most Canadian conversation ever that we just had. But I'm looking at the time here; it's 7:50. So I think we're gonna kind of do just a final call. We'll go up and down the column. We'll get a final word for everybody. I just wanted to thank everybody that was on the board tonight. Thanks very much for coming to the show. All of our viewers, thanks very much for coming in. I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized on here on the Beaver Politics Network. I am back every Saturday at 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. If you missed the show, you can always catch us on YouTube, and Beaver Politics is on multiple times a day. So we'll just go ahead and we'll get a last word for the day from you, Super Grand.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful conversation, and I'm very, very grateful for your respect of women and your defense of us. Thanks very much.
Always welcome, my pleasure. Honey Badger.
Oh, it was good talking with all you guys. I like the different opinions. It was a great talk. Hey, I mean, that's probably most people do not agree with you, and that's fine. But, however, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Is diversity.
You know what? We don't always have to agree on everything, but we do have to agree on discussing everything, I think, Honey Badger. And that's really what my show is about and the Beaver Politics Network is about, is getting that speech out there. Like I said, we may not always agree, but we have to agree to talk about it. Antisocial?
That's what I like the
Sorry.
best about the whole conversation, right? Is that
Yep.
part.
Absolutely, yep.
Well, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, thanks for having me up tonight, host it. Great conversation. Great to see Super Grand again. I've always loved hearing her views and what have you. But my closing point would be this: if there's anything that Canada needs this year, it's for the Stanley Cup to come home. With
Yeah.
7 teams,
That's a
Agreed.
tough.
in the finals this year. We need to win the Stanley Cup, and we need to bring that trophy home.
Home.
That's it.
That's gonna
100%.
be
Whichever
like
team.
that's gonna be like Canada winning the economy battle.
Oh, you know what? We took them out in the Four Nations finals.
That's
Canada
true.
won. It was something we needed so bad, but
That was
at the same
so
time,
That was so sweet.
I'm incredibly distracted right now because my wife is walking down the stairs and she might not be wearing anything, so I'm gonna leave. So. And actually, she almost ate shit. She slept on the last two friggin' steps. But yeah, my wife's kind of hot and she's not wearing anything, so I'm gonna go.
So your wife's kind of hot, fell down the stairs, and you're gonna be attacked.
But it graciously.
All
I
right,
got
All
you.
right.
antisocial,
Beaver.
moving on to bigger and better things.
It's going to be
guys.
interesting.
Nice meeting you all. It's my first time on the live here, and I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me up. I just want to clarify before I go that I truly believe Russia started that illegal, unjustifiable war of aggression on Ukraine, and I truly believe that Canada continues to advocate and protect and defend Ukraine's rights. That's what I believe, 100%. And I confirm that NATO never made no written promises to move eastward. FYI. I just looked it up. Thank you.
Agreed. Thanks very much, Daniil. Beautiful.
Wonderful as always, Radical. Very intense conversations, but again, excellent topics. And nice to get the perspectives of everybody on the panel and hear what's going on because, we're all in the same boat, even though we are all heading from different directions. So we got to keep this, keep it where we're supposed to be going. So thanks very much for having me.
Listen, I just want to say to Beautiful that I have so much respect for Navy wives. You have the toughest of all of us. You're so long suffering.
I have heard that before, and I couldn't understand why until someone said to me, because everybody else may have something in the end, and you probably won't. And that kind of hit home. That was a hard one to accept. But yeah, that was it was difficult. It was difficult, but it wasn't because of his job. He was just a asshole. But anyway. But yeah, I hope you guys all have a great evening. And so I'll be seeing you in the movies. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty.
Alrighty.
Thanks very much to everybody on my panel. Thanks very much for everybody who tuned in to watch the show. As always, remember that Beaver Politics is by the peoples because we are the peoples here that run the show. We are all about knowledge through discourse. And if you liked what you saw, Beaver Politics is on 7 days a week. We have multiple different hosts covering multiple different subjects every day. So you can always find something that's going to tune your interest or pique your interest. We are here and available 7 days a week. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.